Hello everyone and welcome to another summer garden tour for this year. It's fall now and I just did one of the last harvests. There's still 4 more pumpkins and a bunch of pepperoncinis, snacking peppers, and bell peppers growing, but they should be ready really soon. If you watched my Burpee plant catalog flip through video, then you'll have a general idea of which plants I planted in the garden this summer. Around this time in spring, I ordered a bunch of seeds, and I also ordered some full-grown live vegetable plants as well. The seeds arrived much quicker, of course, and I started them in little jiffy pots inside in the springtime, early spring, around March. And once it became warm enough, which is typically around May 1st, the live plants arrived. I ordered a couple of tomato plants, a pepperoncini plant, and 3 different herbs, which were a chocolate peppermint, chamomile, and lavender as well. And the 2 tomatoes were a sun-gold cherry tomato, as well as the cover vegetable on the Burpee catalog, which was a bodacious tomato. Everything was planted around May 15th, which is when we have our last frost. I started several pepper plants inside. They were all sweet bell peppers from a Carnival Blend seed packet. But after a week or so after transplanting them, I didn't see much movement or new growth. So I decided to pay a trip to Home Depot and pick out 4 more plants to replace them, which were a tomato, another bell pepper, a jalapeno, and a snacking sweet pepper. But I didn't just throw away the sad bell pepper sprouts. Instead, I planted them in kind of a riskier location where more wildlife could get to them. But eventually they did pop up and are producing some peppers. Not ready to pick yet, but there's about 3 of them. My 2 favorite squirrels were frequent visitors this summer. My little girl Mangy, who was the squirrel who had a successful recovery from mange over the winter. She came by every few days for a peanut or some sunflower seeds, and a different squirrel who was dubbed Red Ear picked up on Mangy's sweet gig and also started coming around all the time. I was genuinely debating not trying pumpkins again this year after the very unfortunate mishap with the squash vine borer grubs last year. It was very discouraging, but I figured that I did enough research and I could try again. So I planted a mini harvest pumpkin plant and also a mango melon plant in my massive 30-gallon fabric pot. I also planted 2 different varieties of cucumber, a bragger cucumber and a really cool looking lemon cucumber. However, I learned a very important lesson this year. Don't put vigorous varieties next to special varieties of plants in the same pot, because those vigorous varieties will completely overtake the more cool hybrid plants. So because of this mistake, I never actually got to see a lemon cucumber, and I only got 1 mango melon from my melon plant. Additionally, the chocolate peppermint was an unexpectedly vigorous grower, and the chamomile and lavender really had no chance in a pot with the peppermint. I think next year I will try my best to keep all of the plants separated in their own pots. That way they all get a fair shake at growing and producing. The garden had a new addition this year in the springtime, an oriole feeder. Last year I noticed that orioles would sometimes go to my hummingbird feeders and attempt to extract nectar from it. However, they were rarely successful, so I decided to give them their own special feeder this year. And within, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes of putting some delicious jelly or jam in the feeder, I saw my first orioles going to it. Buying a feeder for them was really worth it. I counted at least 3 breeding pairs who would frequent the feeder, and I went through numerous jars of jam. I found that they really love orange marmalade. As usual, I also fed the hummingbirds this year. Currently, they've mostly all migrated south. I haven't seen one for a little bit. And actually, I bought this red fountain for them, but that was a couple years ago. And even though I haven't seen a hummingbird go to it, it has been a huge favorite among many other animals, and even a frequent water source for bees and wasps. Ultimately, I was curious about who actually visited my fountain, so I decided to set up one of my trail cameras by it just to get a peek at who came by. It made me realize and really think about how important it is for animals to have some type of reliable water source by their homes. And we had some incredibly, unbearably hot days this summer, and especially on those days, I really resolved to keep the fountain full of fresh water. Even at night, it was a very popular water source for raccoons. There was a mischievous crew of a mom and 4 babies coming by every night. And these adorable baby raccoons unfortunately turned into destructive teenager raccoons over the course of the summer. One plant I was very excited about was my corn plant, and I managed to get 3 corn plants to sprout and start producing corn until the raccoons discovered it and promptly destroyed the plants and several of the neighboring plants as well, on the hunt for more delicious sweet corn which they had plucked off. The only solution was to completely remove the corn plant from the area because they still wanted to check the plant for corn even well after they had destroyed it. One night, something also took a little nibble off of my one melon growing, but I thought it might be ripe enough already, so I picked it, and it was delicious. I don't think it necessarily tasted like a mango, but nonetheless, it had a very sweet and tasty cantaloupe flavor. After that, my melon plant didn't produce anything else and yielded the full pot to the pumpkin plant. I was very diligent from the very start of the summer to check my pumpkin plant very often for signs of a squash vine borer infestation. I removed worms, I removed eggs, and I even spent a good hour watching a vine borer moth fly around, laying eggs all over my plant. What I discovered is that if you can find the worms when they're very teeny, tiny, small, they're super easy to dig out and remove. I would estimate that I removed at least 30 worms from the plant, and it's paid off drastically because my plant didn't die like last year in August. And it actually got a second wind in September and produced way more pumpkins than I was expecting. The sun gold cherry tomatoes turned out to be delicious. Probably one of my favorite cherry tomatoes I've had, along with yellow pear cherry tomatoes. The plant was a very vigorous producer also. There aren't many left now, but there was a lot. The bodacious tomato was unfortunately plagued by raccoons who wanted to take a nibble off of each one, but the ones that did ripen were perfect burger slice tomatoes. The jalapenos are delicious, of course, and are fantastic to pick and put on nachos. You can see I got a lot of them. The pepperoncinis grew to be very long, which I wasn't expecting. I'm used to the short and squatty pepperoncinis you get from pizza joints and Greek restaurants. I kind of wonder if they use a different variety or hybrid of pepperoncini, because not only do they look very different, but these pepperoncinis aren't the least bit spicy, even when I've left them on the vine to turn this beautiful bright red. They're still tasty peppers to snack on though. I would love to make some hot sauce one day, though my favorite peppers are habanero peppers. So maybe I will try to grow those as well next year. So good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be, and I hope you can get outside and enjoy some lovely weather before winter.